do math well. There we go. Hey, good afternoon, everybody. I'd like to thank you all for coming together today, taking some time off to talk about some truly extraordinary contributions of our colleague, Mike Timm. Before we start, I would like to welcome your wife, Krista. She's joining us from the Ice Harbor Project, where she works as a budget analyst, and your parents, Greg and Bev. They join us from Eugene, Oregon, and your sister, Jen, who is also from, Bend, Oregon. And thank you all for taking time out to be here today. It's truly special, and glad you could be here. But it's my absolute honor to take time and recognize just a small portion of some contributions that you made while deployed recently, and to celebrate them amongst your friends, colleagues, and family. As many of you know, Timm is a project engineer with our engineer and construction branch. He works in construction, and you may also know that Mike deployed recently to Afghanistan with the 34th FEST. He spent 9 months there conducting the FEST team's mission in Afghanistan, which really had to do with the actions that are necessary to close down bases, infrastructure, and airfields. It's a very dynamic mission. It's one that takes the right skill level, right character, and Mike delivered that. But wait, there's more. After a 9-month deployment, you then volunteered to stay on as a Department of the Army expeditionary civilian employee working for the United States Forces Afghanistan, also called US-4A as their abbreviation, where you worked with your J4 on the actions necessary for the retrograde of equipment and then the subsequent withdrawal of forces from Afghanistan. I think ultimately that means that's 9 months plus at least another 3, 4, 9, 10 plus you're over a year consistently deployed in Afghanistan right at a very important juncture. Now I'm going to do something right now that I usually don't do. I'm going to read the narration that came with this award in full. I won't just make a summary of it because it's simply not possible for me to convey to all of us the true contribution, the magnitude of contribution that Mike made to our brothers and sisters in arms at a very historic moment in the Army's history. So if you'll allow me, I'm going to read this. Mr. Mike Timm exhibited exceptional competence and courage in the performance of his duties, which directly improved the performance of the Department of Defense during the retrograde and subsequent withdrawal of forces out of Afghanistan from June through August 2021. While serving as a mechanical engineer assigned to the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers Expeditionary Civilian Workforce, Mike was, without a doubt, one of the main reasons that DoD forces were able to retrograde and withdraw from Kabul, Afghanistan, without further loss of life or injury. Mr. Timm was not afraid to take on additional tasks to improve life support and ensure essential services remain viable for the last 2 DoD facilities within Afghanistan to the very end. After having served in Bagram, then Resolute Support Headquarters Compound, and finally the Hamid Karzai International Airport, or HKIA, Mike used his expertise to support DoD efforts in numerous ways as a mechanical engineer. He maintained prime power, water, and wastewater facilities, and conducted field expedient engineer techniques to restore essential ground vehicles to support the withdrawal of forces and personnel from the country. On the 16th of August, 2021, Mike noticed that the construction crews were making improvements to Taxiway H, which linked Camp Alvarado, which is ramp 10 of the Hamid Karzai International Airport, where the Department of State and the 82nd Airborne Forces were working out of as they controlled the withdrawal. It separated that from the rest of the airport, had abandoned their equipment on the taxiway. A large tracked excavator, 4 generator light sets, and associated equipment blocked the taxiway of the west entrance to ramp 10, which caused significant logistic problems for the C-17s which were entering Ramp 10 to gain access to the active runway. Well outside of the scope of his duties and under threat from a nearby group of upwards of 1,000 uncontrolled refugees who were on the active runway, Mike formulated a plan to clear the taxiway. He started the excavator with a flathead screwdriver and then dragged the generator light sets out of the way with a ratchet strap. He then utilized the excavator to remove concrete blocks, which were bolted atop holes on the taxiway, meant for taxiway lighting. And if they were not removed, they would have caused damage to any aircraft he taxied over. Mike enabled the unimpeded movement of C-17s onto the ramp and down taxiway H to the departure at the end of the runway, resulting in the successful retrograde of over 100,000 Afghan refugees and the entirety of coalition forces prior to the 31st August deadline. Many support vehicles were rendered inoperable in the days following the collapse of the Afghan government, including a water truck necessary for cementing ammunition that could not be retrograded from theater. An incredibly important 1,000-gallon capacity fuel truck that would be necessary to refuel 2 power plants on Camp Alvarado and 2 counter-rocket assisted munitions, or we call CRAM, systems. Mike leveraged his technical skill and exchanged electronic parts from a truck similar to the fuel truck, rewiring it to make it useful with the help of his now infamous flathead screwdriver. Over the 2 weeks that followed, HKI was under threats of direct attack, and U.S. and coalition forces were working to evacuate American citizens, coalition forces, and Afghans with special immigrant visas. Mike used the fuel truck to refuel the power plants and 2 CRAM systems more than 15 times, keeping power, water, and sewer systems working for more than 2,000 U.S. personnel and ensuring that the CRAM systems were able to operate without fail. On the final day of U.S. and coalition forces withdrawal, the CRAM successfully shot down a rocket-assisted munition that would have otherwise landed on HKIA, potentially injuring or killing DoD service members during this extremely high-risk period. On the 26th of August, Mike refueled the main Camp Alvarado power plant when ISIS-K initiated the most deadly attack on U.S. forces since 2011. Mike received word that the water treatment plant on the neighboring North Kaya installation had suffered a catastrophic failure, shutting off water to the Roll 2 hospital where over 100 victims of the attack were being treated. Under great risk to himself, due to the imminent threat of a follow-on vehicle-borne improvised device attack at the North Gate, Mike bravely put the well-being of himself, of others before himself, and accepted the task of repairing the water treatment plant located only 200 meters from that North Gate. After arriving on scene at approximately 2200 hours, Mike donned rubber boots and waded into the humid and flooded basement of the plant. He masterfully assessed the situation and devised a plan to drain the water and restore power, activating the sump pumps which drained the basement, dried out the high voltage breaker boxes and lines which crisscrossed the basement floor. He improvised and installed a device on the high pressure raw water line and replaced the breaker with tools and parts left in a shed by contractors who had disappeared into chaos at the airport. Though nearby explosions of coalition airstrikes, Mike unrelentingly continued to solve problems in the plant, demonstrating exceptional bravery and calm under pressure. After 3 hours, Mike restored the water treatment plant to near full operational capacity and remedied a dire situation at the hospital, restoring clean water for thousands of Afghan refugees and coalition forces who were inhabiting the North Kaya installation. Mr. Timm not only enabled task force talent, but also supported the 1st Infantry Brigade Combat Team of the 82nd Airborne Division on Camp Alvarado, deployed in support of security operations to hold Hamid Karzai International Airport and allow the safe evacuation of thousands of DoD forces, American citizens, and at-risk Afghans. He went well beyond the scope of his duties to support the entirety of HKI and a chaotic, stressful, and extremely high-risk period during a time of the withdrawal of personnel in Afghanistan. And then, you know, Mike, you stayed on to the very end. I think you said you were 4 or 5 planes before you saw Major General Donahue. And in a now widely publicized photograph, the last U.S. trooper that left the airfield, you were right there, right before. And so, I just have to say that on behalf of the Northwestern Division, the Transatlantic Division of the United States Army Corps of Engineers, the combined U.S. Forces Afghanistan team, who I am confident would otherwise be here if it were not for the tyranny of distance, I want to commend you for your outstanding dedication to duty and your bravery. You were the exact right engineer on the ground at the exact right time, and you had the commitment to take the hard road and see things through to the very end. And I can't tell you how much that means to us all, and it fully embodies our motto as engineers, Essayons, let us try. To Krista, I want to thank you to our team here in allowing Mike to deploy forward and give skill and expertise to the place where it was needed most, when the Army needed it most. We pride ourselves in being a district that gives till it hurts. And this is a great example of it, so I want to thank you as well. One team, one fight. Now, before I ask Mr. Alan Feisner, who's our civilian deputy, to publish the orders, I'd like to ask that as he does that, everybody please stand. And Krista, if you would, could I ask that you step forward up? Mike here.
Attention to orders. The Secretary of the Army has awarded the Meritorious Civilian Service Medal to Michael B. Timm for his superior performance and distinguished service June to August 2021 with the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. Mr. Timm exhibited exceptional leadership, professionalism, and courage through his actions supporting Task Force Talon and the 1st Brigade Combat Team of the 82nd Airborne Division. He put others before himself and was invaluable during Department of Defense and Coalition Forces withdrawal from the Hamid Karzai Airport in Kabul, Afghanistan. Mr. Timm's dedication, outstanding initiative, and exemplary performance reflect great credit on himself, the Transatlantic Division, United States Army Corps of Engineers, and the Department of the Army. Signed, Major General Kimberly Colleton, U.S. Army Commander.
All right, so give him a round of applause. Mike, your floor.
I'd like to thank, so when I first deployed, I went to 34th Fest, Major Minshew, who's in Seattle, who was in charge of our team, and he accepted me and picked me to be on the team, and that's how this whole thing got started. And so I'd like to thank him for teaching me the Army isms, so to speak, of deployment and how to handle that, as well as the Colonel Hammond, Lieutenant Colonel Hammond, and Colonel Korth. They took me on, and they wanted me to stay and wanted me to help. And so they're the ones that sent me to Kabul in the first place to go help assemble things and get things rolling. So I'd like to thank them as well. And then Task Force Talon and the 82nd Cav. They kept me safe. They helped me do my mission, and then in turn I provided them and helped them with their critical systems. And they graciously kept me safe and got me on a plane and got me out of there and kept track of me. So I never felt like I was going to get left behind or anything was going to happen with that. So I would like to thank those guys. And my family, obviously, for, letting me go.
Thank you again. I appreciate taking the time out to be here. This is truly something that is rare and fleeting, and it's our absolute honor to take the time together and recognize you. So thank you for being here, and look forward to seeing you again soon. All right. Thanks again. Hey, everybody.